March Madness is here. A crazy weekend of conference tournaments led to a crazy selection Sunday, and we now know your Texas men's basketball team is a 7 seed and your Texas women's basketball team is a 1 seed in their respective NCAA tournaments. We break down the brackets, and I tell you each team's path to the Final Four.
You are Locked On Longhorns, your daily podcast on the Texas Longhorns. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Longhorns, the show. Jonathan Davis, your host. Today's episode of Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little bit further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at NissanUSA.com. On today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, once again, the Texas men's basketball team, a 7 seed. The Texas women's basketball team, a 1 seed. We bust down the brackets and go through their respective paths to the Final Four. And then in the second segment, we talk about the Texas baseball team, who this weekend lost a series to the Washington Huskies, but did a good job of winning yesterday to avoid the sweep. All of that and more on today's episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, a few housekeeping notes. This is my first episode since Wednesday for good reason, right? And I left just in time for, Texas to get upset in the first round of the conference tournament, the men, by Kansas State, I should say. Shout out to the women, for going out there and winning the whole thing. But I was in Atlanta/Nashville. So I flew to Atlanta, and then we drove to Nashville, and then we drove from Nashville to Atlanta, and then I flew back to Houston this morning. I haven't even been back in Houston for an hour, and I'm sitting here recording, right? Because the work never stops. But for good reason. So my sister, she went to Meharry Medical College, and she is graduating this semester, but she had match day last week, or on Friday, and she matched with her number one choice. She will be going to Chicago to do pediatrics in the Northwestern medical system. So huge congrats to her. It was a great moment for the family, and it was super cool to be in Nashville over the weekend because coincidentally it was the SEC tournament, right? And so you got all our future SEC rivals playing basketball, trying to, see who's going to win the tournament. Ultimately, Auburn did. But Auburn fans were there, in numbers, right? Tennessee, of course, Kentucky, of course, Texas A&M, Arkansas. It was just really cool to see all of these SEC fans being represented, and Oklahoma and Texas will be in the SEC starting July 1st. And, hopefully the tournament is in Nashville again next year because I love Nashville, and it'll be cool to see all the burnt orange on Broadway, right? As we support the Texas Longhorns in the NCAA tournament next year as an SEC team. So that's why I have not recorded since Wednesday. That's why you have not heard my voice since Wednesday or whenever the last time you listened to Locked On Longhorns, because I was in Nashville/Atlanta. Just got back an hour ago, back on the grind, ready to cover the NCAA tournaments, men's and women's, hopefully for the next 3 to 4 weeks. Also, I believe, I could be tripping, but I believe this is the first show I have ever done without my headphones. I definitely feel naked. The reason I do not have my headphones on is because this morning when I was going through TSA in Atlanta, right, remind me to never fly through Atlanta again, I left a water bottle in my backpack, and who knew, that water bottle would cause so much trouble. So they take my backpack and search it, right? And then they give me my bin back. They're like, you can't have the, bottle of water. I'm like, okay, that's cool. And I start pulling my stuff out the bin, and I notice this. Yeah, these are the beats I've worn on over 200 episodes of Locked On Longhorns. And I'm like, what happened? And she's like, I don't know. I didn't touch it. I didn't do anything. And it's almost like, she's smirking. Like, she's like, like, why are you even bothering me? You know what I mean? Like, that's your problem, So I have an active complaint opened, trying to figure out what's going to happen about my beats that I use for literally everything and I've had for years. So yeah, hopefully I get a new pair of headphones. But until then, shout out to the TSA lady in Atlanta for doing that. All right. March Madness. Right? It extends past what happened to me in the airport today. We're talking about basketball, and it's been a crazy month. And I think over the weekend, we saw how crazy those conference tournaments were, and we knew that would lead into a bizarre Selection Sunday. And Selection Sunday was pretty bizarre, right? Based on what a lot of people thought would happen and what actually happened. And we saw a lot of, I would say, brackets getting burst, but we saw a lot of things that we not expect in these conference tournaments. And there were, conferences that usually only get one bid, but you had to put multiple teams in from that conference. We saw teams that had no business winning their conference tournaments, winning it and getting that automatic bid, like NC State, beating North Carolina. And it was a lot of chaos in terms of how the regions and the seeds were selected. And I think every year, there's going to be teams that are overseeded, underseeded. Every year there's going to be teams that get snubbed, and every year there's going to be complaints, right? Like, obviously this is not something that the committee can do perfectly every year. Just like football with the college football playoffs. Next year, you're going to see the 13th and the 14th ranked team in the country complaining that they weren't in the top 12, right? Every list has to end. You cannot be perfect with this, right? But I do not remember a selection Sunday that was this widely criticized. Now, a lot of it had to do with the chaos that kind of forced the committee's hand. And I think if you look at the bracket, over half the teams in it are mid-majors. But still, I cannot remember a selection Sunday this bizarre, or that had this much negative feedback, or that provided this much chaos in terms of what's going to happen over the next 3 to 4 weeks. So when you look at it, these are just a few things that I noticed, right? And I don't watch all 68 teams. There's some things I saw on Twitter that people were mad about that I can't verify, but these are the things that stuck out to me, right? Indiana State became the first team in NCAA tournament history to be ranked in the top 30 of the net rankings and not make the dance. That happened this year. Iowa State won by 19 points against Kansas State, 14 points against Baylor, and 28 points against Houston, the number one team in the country in the Big 12 tourney, and got the lowest 2 seed, right? Not only did they not get a 1, they got the lowest 2 seed in UConn's bracket, the number 1 overall seed. Only 3 Big East teams made the tournament. Only 3 Big East teams made the tournament, but the 3 that made it were 1, 2, and 3 seeds. UConn was a 1 seed, Marquette was a 2 seed, and Creighton was a 3 seed. So the conference is good enough to have a 1 seed, a 2 seed, and a 3 seed, but it's only good enough to have those 3 teams. There's not a conference in the world that is that top heavy that the best teams are 1, 2, and 3 seeds, but nobody else in the conference can make it. Seton Hall, Providence, St. John's all had an argument to make the tournament. All were left out. Not saying they were snubbed, but the Big East should have had more than 3 teams. Michigan State got a 9 seed and an at-large bid with only 19 wins and arguably the 4th best conference this year, which was the Big Ten. Because you could say the Big 12 and the ACC were definitely better than the Big Ten. I would go as far as saying the Big East was better as well. FAU getting an 8th seed and not even making their conference final. 4 of the 6 Power 5 plus Big East tournament champions, Auburn, Iowa State, UConn, and I'm missing somebody. Auburn, Iowa State, UConn. It's not NC State. It's not Oregon. So who am I missing? And Illinois. They're all in the same bracket. Illinois, Iowa State, Auburn, and UConn. Like, they're all in the same bracket, which is ridiculous. So those were just some things that I noticed from a Selection Sunday standpoint where I was like, okay, this is a little off, right? And maybe the committee had a down year, right? But like I said, they had a lot of chaos from the conference tournaments to deal with. For the last 3 weeks to a month, we're talking about the Texas basketball team now, right? Sorry, 8 minutes in. For the last 3 weeks to a month, Texas was firmly on the 8 and 9 line, right? We felt like we were 8 or 9 seed, and we had a chance to move up to 7 with a deep turning run. But essentially, Texas had earned an 8 or 9 seed, right? Texas, in the first round of the Big 12 tourney, where they needed to make a run to get up to that 7 line, lost to an inferior Kansas State team in the first round that got smoked by 19 points the very next day against Iowa State. So it proved to be even a worse loss than it looked at the time when they went and got blown out the very next day. But somehow Texas still moved up to a 7 seed, right? So I know people want to talk about how people hate the University of Texas and we always get the bad end of the stick. But please realize that being associated with the University of Texas comes with a lot of good too. Because I'm the biggest Rodney Terry and Texas basketball fan, and I can't even say that Texas earned a 7 seed this year. But chaos, man. It's March Madness for a reason. So when we look at the potential outlook for the Texas men's basketball team in the tournament, Texas will face the winner of Colorado State and Virginia in Tuesday night's game in Dayton, Ohio. We'll have more analysis tomorrow in terms of who would Texas rather see, Colorado State or Virginia. Another, big kind of gripe I saw was that people said that there's no way that Colorado State should even be playing into the tournament, right? Like, they should be one of the 64 teams. I guess we'll find out tomorrow night when they play Virginia, right? The winner would have to play less than 48 hours later. The winner of the Colorado State and Virginia game would have to play less than 48 hours later against the Longhorns in Charlotte, North Carolina. So not only do they have to win this game on Tuesday night in Dayton, Ohio, they then have to fly to Charlotte, North Carolina and play Texas in less than 48 hours after their game. if Texas were to advance to the second round, a major storyline awaits. And I think that the committee is going to get it this year. They tried it last year when they put Texas and Texas A&M so close to the bracket, but Texas A&M lost in the first round to Penn State. This year, Texas is going to win in the first round. They should, I should say. And Tennessee is going to win in the first round. And if those things both happen, Texas and Tennessee will be playing in the second round. Rodney Terry and Rick Barnes will be facing off, right? Which would be absolutely crazy, right? For the second time, and we all know, obviously, Rick Barnes used to coach at the University of Texas, and Rodney Terry was one of the top assistants on his staff, right? And, Tennessee, a veteran team. Texas has played against, Zakai Ziegler. Texas has played against Vescovi. Texas has played against Josiah Jordan. Now they've added Dalton Connect, who is their scorer and can give you 20 to 25 points every night. But I think the problem with Tennessee is they're a rugged defensive team. But if Dalton Connect is not giving you 20, 25 every night, and, Zakai Ziegler is not going off, this is a team that still can struggle to score a lot, and in the most opportune times. And we know, Rick Barnes, bless his heart, NCAA tournament hasn't been the best for him. So I think Texas has a great chance to make to the Sweet 16, actually. But, if they do make it to the Sweet 16, they would go to Detroit to face South Carolina, Oregon, Creighton, or Akron. If Texas wins in the Sweet 16, then they'll likely face off against Purdue, Kansas, or Gonzaga in the Elite Eight, barring any crazy upsets at the other top, the other side of the bracket, I should say, in the Midwest region. In the Final Four, Texas would play the winner of the South region, where the top 4 seeds are Houston, Marquette, Kentucky, and Duke, and Phoenix. And if Texas were to win that game and make their first championship, it would be against the winner of either the East or the West region. So a lot of projecting right now. Obviously, the first 4 end games haven't even started. We're still at 68. We got to get down to 64 before Texas can even think about moving to the second round to play Tennessee and then the Sweet 16, Elite 8, all of that. But I will say, based on them moving up to a 7 seed and what they were dealt in terms of the hand they were dealt, they have a very favorable bottom half of the bracket, right? I would not be surprised if this Texas team made it to the Sweet 16. I would not be surprised if this Texas team made it to the Elite 8. Of course, that would require them to play their best basketball. But I think the teams in this bracket, the teams in this region, all have a flaw, a pretty big flaw, right? And I think Texas has good enough players, and they play well enough at this time of the year, minus the Kansas State, game, to go on a similar run like they did last year and somewhat shock the world. And this year, they'll even be shocking Texas fans, because based on what I've seen, most Texas fans don't think they'll get out the second round. So when they do, and we get to the Sweet 16, I'm going to come on here, beat my chest, and say this season was successful for the Texas basketball team. But of course, we got to go out there and win 2 games to get to the Sweet 16, and I'm looking forward to watching those games this weekend, right? I guess on Thursday and then Saturday. A quick word from our sponsors, and then we get into the Texas baseball team, who lost the series to the Washington Huskies. What's going on with Texas athletics and the University of Washington these days? Sheesh. All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs. When you're hiring for your small business, you want to find quality professionals that are right for the role. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs has the tools to help find the right professionals for your team faster and for free. LinkedIn isn't just another job board. LinkedIn has a vast network of more than 1 billion professionals, which makes it the best place to hire. It gives you access to professionals you can't find anywhere else. LinkedIn does all that while making the process easy and intuitive. Hiring is easy when you have that many quality candidates. So easy, in fact, that 86% of small businesses get a qualified candidate within 24 hours. LinkedIn knows that small businesses are wearing so many hats and might not have the time or resources to hire. But LinkedIn is constantly finding ways to make the process easier. They even just launched a feature that helps you write job descriptions, making the process even easier and quicker. 2.5 million small businesses use LinkedIn for hiring. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. And remember, terms and conditions do apply. Also, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by Amazon. Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend for baseball or the college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver deliver a constant supply of the latest videos from your favorite sports brands, all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all of the game analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date on all the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, and lots more. Not to mention great news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking videos as well. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. To learn more, visit Amazon.com. Hold on. / Locked On Fire TV. All right, so talking about the Texas baseball team, it's been somewhat of a roller coaster season. I think they still have a better record than they did at this point last year, or maybe not. They started 4-7, and let's see, right now they have 8 losses. But I know that after they started 4-7, they went on like a crazy win streak. So about the same as where they were last year, but I would say last year they had more momentum. At this point, because they rattled off like a 15-16 game win streak, and Texas just lost 2 out of 3 over the weekend to the Washington Huskies. And once again, I'm not sure what it is, but CDC, it's clear as day. We need to stop scheduling athletic events against the University of Washington. Obviously, the 2 bowl games we didn't control, you know what I mean? But this baseball series, the 2 bowl games, like I'm tired of losing to the University of Washington. I'm tired of feeling like that school up in Seattle is superior, right, in athletics, right? And it's like I can't do the Texas thing and be like, will we do this, or will we do this, or will we have this, or we've done this over the last 70 years, because it's like, okay, what does that matter? They beat them twice in football and 2 out of 3 in baseball, right? So it's like they're winning the now, right? We might be better in the long term, but they're certainly winning the now. When we look at the series over the weekend, Texas is now 11-8 on the season after dropping 2 out of 3 to UW on Friday. Texas lost 9-3. LeBaron Johnson, LBJ, pitched a quality start at Jim, putting himself and Texas in line for the win. In 6 innings, he had 10 strikeouts while only allowing 1 run. And when your ace does that, when LeBaron Johnson does that, you should win that game. Washington scored that run on LeBaron Johnson in the 3rd inning on a 2-out RBI double. Those 2-out hits will kill you. Texas took a 3-1 lead in the next inning, getting in their small ball bag, right, with 2 walks, a sac bunt, and then an RBI single plus an RBI double to get to 3-1, right? Love when, Texas gets in their small ball bag. Love when baseball teams, I should say, get in their small ball bag. Washington then turned the tables on Texas later in the 7th inning. They were deadlocked for a couple innings. Excuse me, actually, I'm mistaken. I'm thinking about another game. Texas was down. Texas was up 3-1. And then Washington in the 7th inning, had 6 hits and a runner who reached by error and scored 6 runs in the inning off of David Shaw and Gage Bohm. So when LeBaron Johnson left the game after the 6th inning, Texas was up 3-1. He was in line for the win, and Texas was in line for the win. In the very next inning, 6 hits and an error occurred, allowing 7 base runners to reach base in that inning, and 6 runs were scored to give Washington at that point a 7-3 lead, and they added 2 more insurance runs in the top of the 9th to make the final score 9-3. On Saturday, Texas lost 3-5. Texas started off the game trailing, which has been somewhat of a theme this season. I feel like most teams have jumped out to an early lead against Texas. And when we've taken the lead in the 1st or 2nd inning against other teams, I feel like our pitching has given that lead up, right? Or, the team has answered right back, right? So I think we need to do a better job of coming out hot at the start of these games, if possible, right? I'm sure if they could, they would, right? Washington took a 3-0 lead in the 1st inning, headlined by a 2-run homer off Cody Howard. 2 more players crossed the plate in the 3rd for Washington to take a 5-0 lead, and they chased Cody Howard out of the game. Ace Whitehead would pitch from the 3rd to the end of the game, only allowing 1 hit, albeit in a losing effort, but definitely a gem 7-inning, relief pitching performance to come in and hold them at 5 and only allow 1 hit was crazy. Maybe you should have put him in the 1st inning. We'll never know. 2 solo homers in the 3rd and 4th cut it to 3, and Texas would score again in the 6th. But ultimately, that's where the rally ended with the final score of 5-3. So now we go to Sunday. Texas is down 2-0, desperately needs a win to avoid a sweep, and they got it. Texas won 4-3 against the Washington Huskies yesterday. The game was delayed 90 minutes, so the teams only ended up playing 8 innings due to a flight curfew for the Washington Huskies. I've never heard of that, but that's hard, right? Like, we got to be on the plane at a certain time no matter what. So we're going to shorten this baseball game. Max Grubbs gave the Longhorns their 2nd quality start of the weekend. I got to stop assuming everybody knows what a quality start is. That's 6 innings, less than 3 runs earned. for the pitcher, right? That's a quality start. Max Grubbs gave the Longhorns their second quality start of the weekend, only allowing 1 run and 5 base runners in 6 innings. So definitely a gem from Max Grubbs. Texas brought the small ball back, right, scoring 2 runs in the bottom of the first without recording a hit. Both runs coming on ground ball outs. Texas scored their 3rd run of the game on a sacrifice fly and their 3rd run of the game while recording an out, right? Then Texas worked their 5th, 6th, and 7th walks in just the first 3 innings to take a 4-0 lead on a bases loaded walk, right? So the small ball was in full effect yesterday. All 4 runs were scored without a base hit. That's crazy. Cole Selvig gave up a 2-run homer, cutting Washington's deficit to 1, right? Because Max Grubbs had gave up a run. Cole Selvig gave up a 2-run homer. So now the game is 4-3. But Andre Duplantier came in the 8th, right, and got the save because of the rain delay, right, and didn't give up a run. So ultimately, it was close. Who knows what would have happened in the 9th inning, but we'll never know because we didn't play a 9th inning, and Texas was able to get the win and make sure they did not get swept against the Washington Huskies. 2-1 sounds a lot better than 3-0 for sure. My final thoughts on Texas over the weekend. Texas was out hit 26-18 in the series. This is the type of team that the offense is going to have to carry. Offense did not carry them this weekend, right? They did a good job of getting a win yesterday and doing what they needed to do to get on base and score runs, but Texas is not going to do really well this year if they get out hit by 8, in a 3-game series in any other weekend series or against any other team they play. 8 hits is a lot, right? Like there's a lot of teams that don't get 8 hits in a game, and Texas got outscored by or out hit by 8 over the weekend, I should say. More times than not, multiple quality starts in a series will lead to a series win or sweep. So if you continue to get those performances from Max Grubbs and LBJ, you should be better off moving forward, right? There's no scenario in which you should get 2 quality starts from your pitcher and still lose the series or get swept. 2 quality starts from, 2 of your best pitchers. But ultimately, that comes down to the bullpen, right? The bullpen has to match the intensity and energy that LBJ and Max Grubbs gave you over the weekend. Not so much. Texas had 5 errors over the weekend defensively. Can't do that, right? You shouldn't have errors, period. Obviously, it's going to happen, but you want to clean that up. You want to be as clean defensively as possible and consistently as possible. You're going to have errors, but 5 over a 3-game stretch, that is not Texas Longhorns baseball. Bullpen gave up 10 runs over the weekend, which included that 7-inning shutout ball performance from Ace Whitehead. So bullpen giving up 10 runs, especially after 2 quality starts from your starting pitchers, not great at all. Texas scored on walks, ground outs, sac flies, and utilized sac bunts this weekend. So even though the bats weren't popping, the offense wasn't explosive as we're used to seeing. They did a good job of utilizing small ball to get on base and score, some runs, even though it wasn't what we were used to seeing. So, ultimately you would like to win this series. Ultimately you don't want to lose a series to anybody, but I did think they did a really good job of handling the rain delay situation yesterday, coming out hot and at least making sure you didn't get swept, right? Now all you can do is move forward and try your best to play better baseball, and you know what you have to clean up, right? But, they lost the series. That's disappointing, but they did a really good job of not getting swept yesterday, and that's what I want to hang my head on. All right. Quick word from our sponsors, and then we're talking about our number 1 seed women's basketball team and Vic Schaefer. Can they make it to the Final Four? But better yet, they should make it to the Final Four. Can they win the national championship? The Texas Longhorns? All right, today's episode of Locked On Longhorns is brought to you by Nissan. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest, just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs. These guys were able to take it to the next level. Let's go with the UConn Huskies, the defending national champions. Can only be described as an armada. This top-seeded team is as hardcore as it gets out there. So it's no wonder they've landed the top overall seed in the NCAA tournament. They're one of the favorites to win it all, despite 4 of the 6 Power 6 conference champions standing in their way in the East region. Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. I feel like I need some mouthwash because, why would I highlight UConn on Locked On Longhorns? I had to when I was just reading the ad, but it's why would I not just say Texas is going to win the NCAA tournament? Why would I not celebrate Texas getting a 7 seed? You know what I mean? Like, anyway, let's talk about the Texas women's basketball team who got the number 1 seed, right? They're one of 4 number 1 seeds in the women's tournament, joining USC and Juju Watkins, Iowa, and Caitlin Clark, and South Carolina, and everybody they got, right? I guess Don Staley is the representation for South Carolina, but just such a magical season. For Vic Schaefer and the Texas women's basketball team, going out and, maintaining or, still being a top 5 team in the country, going out and securing a 1 seed and going out and winning the Big 12, conference tournament without Rory Harmon. Like, she tore her ACL 3 months ago. And, I don't want to say they haven't missed a beat because it's Rory Harmon. She's one of the best players in the country. But man, like, for this team to still be a legitimate national championship contender is just all the credit in the world to the resilience of the coaching staff and the players who are about to go out here and compete and possibly bring another championship home to the 40 acres. And they certainly have a good enough team to do it, even though there's a lot of competition and a lot of great players in this women's tournament. Texas will face Drexel in the first round, with the winner of Alabama versus Florida State on deck in the second round. In the Sweet 16, Texas will likely face the winner of Utah and Gonzaga. In the Elite 8, they'll likely get an Iowa State team that they're very familiar with. Tennessee, who came the closest out of anybody this year to beating South Carolina. They had the lead with 1.5 seconds left until, I guess, Camila Cordova hit her first 3 of her career. Right, so Tennessee was the only team to almost knock off the number 1, overall seed undefeated South Carolina Gamecocks. So they could be an interesting team. NC State, definitely a really good team. And then, of course, Stanford, all-time winningest coach in college basketball, men or women's, Tara Vanderveer. So you have to give her a ton of credit. And in that matchup, Texas, Stanford 1-2. The director's cut matchup, that could be a really interesting one. But I definitely see a scenario in which Texas should get to the Final Four, right? They're the 1 seed, so they probably be favored in all of these games. But, I really don't see anybody that just super stands in their way. I think Stanford is vulnerable. Iowa State is vulnerable. Tennessee is vulnerable. I mean, really all of these teams in the bracket, right? Like, you looked at some of these other regions and they got, UCLA, LSU, and Iowa in the same region. It's like, damn, that's a gauntlet, right? Like, I really don't look at Texas bracket and look at it as a gauntlet, right? Like, I think they should be able to get through it. Obviously, if they lost to Stanford, you wouldn't be too shocked about that, right? Stanford is an amazing basketball program, has been for, the last 30, 40 years on the women's side. And, maybe some of these other teams, because anything can happen in the tournament where you only get 1 loss and you go home. But Texas should be able to get to the Final Four because I think they're the best team in their region by far. Yeah, I'll go ahead and say it, by far. I do think there's a gap between them and every other team, but, you actually got to go out there and win the game. So we'll see what Vic Schaefer and, Mackenzie Booker can cook up. And then, yeah, we very well could get a Texas-Iowa or Texas-LSU matchup in the Final Four. And I think that would be absolutely crazy to see Texas go against Iowa and Caitlin Clark and that machine that's been for the last 4 years, or to see Texas go up against LSU and Angel Reese and, Flage and all of them. I think that would be a super cool matchup in the Final Four for this Texas women's basketball team. So just super excited about this tournament. So much star power with the women's players. So many great basketball teams in the women's tournament. And I'm super excited to see what Texas can do, right? Because Texas is amongst that elite, right? We talk about the LSUs, the South Carolinas, and the Iowas, but Texas is a 1 seed, right? Right there along with USC as well. And I think Texas has just as much of a chance as anybody else to win this tournament, maybe behind South Carolina. I'll give them the benefit of the doubt because they're the undefeated number 1 overall seed. But I think after South Carolina, Texas has just as good a chance as anybody to win the national championship, and I'll be rooting like hell for them to bring another one to the 40. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Locked On Longhorns, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Rain, sleet, shine, or snow, or no headphones. Your team every day.